All right, everybody, what's up? It is now batting for the Phillies. It's a Mike and Bob Phillies baseball chat. We are back with another live edition for all the people on the X platform and on YouTube where you can subscribe. And we thank the people who have already done so. The amount of people who have already subscribed in the first couple weeks of this podcast, Bob Wankel, is actually pretty cool to see that people are yearning for Phillies conversation. We're going to give them a little bit of it today. We got some things we want to touch on as the Phillies make a little news. They did their Rule 5 protections yesterday, which I think there's a little bit of a conversation to be had. Who got saved, who did not. Kyle Schwarber could be a sleeper team, which I think could make the offseason very interesting. There was a trade in baseball yesterday. The Phillies are trying to trade guys, but alas, they have no takers for certain guys on this team. What's up, my man?
What's going on, Mike? Yeah, I mean, look, it's good. We're getting some positive momentum here early on, and nothing's even really happened yet. People are, I think, anxious about what's going to happen here over the next few weeks and I guess months. And I will say, though, things are a little slow on the hot stove. There are some developments that have happened here the last couple of days that I think are a little bit telling about some of the problems that the Phillies are going to face this offseason. And you alluded to it. And I guess let's start with Schwarber Watch 2025, because that's the key question to the whole offseason. It is the first domino that's going to have to fall for this team before they really try to reconstruct and add around the edges. The rumor yesterday, Jeff Passan comes out and he has hammered the Pirates. So let me just say this. This is like tangential to the Derek Gunn credibility. Is he plugged in about what's going on with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts? Like, Derek Gunn is one of the more respected reporters and Eagles reporters historically in this area, in this market. So when he talks and he says something, you listen. But when Jeff Passan says something about anyone, you tend to listen, certainly when it's about the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that he has absolutely eviscerated for being cheap over the last number of years. And so Jeff Passan drops a note in his latest piece that the Pittsburgh Pirates are genuinely interested in the services of Kyle Schwarber. And the reason why I preface this story with that context is to say this. Like, sure, the Pirates could say we're cheap as hell. We obviously know that we're not going to sign Kyle Schwarber. Could you, reporter, do us a favor and put this in your story or send out a tweet and make us look good so that everyone gets off of our backs? Jeff Passan's not going to do that favor for the Pirates. So do I think the Pirates are going to sign Kyle Schwarber? No chance in hell. But do I think that there is some legitimacy to the claim? I absolutely do.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people look at the Pirates and just kind of laugh at that. There's been some other reporting, too, by not just Jeff Passan, that the Pirates want to spend some money this offseason. They have not spent any money in our lifetime, essentially. And now, all of a sudden, it's like, hey, let's get involved at the party here. I don't know what to read into that, but you're right. If the Pirates are willing to pony up something, what that could signify is, yeah, maybe we don't have enough to bring him in, but if we make an offer, that could make somebody else have to make a ridiculous offer. And that ridiculous offer might be the one that the Phillies say, I can't make that ridiculous of an offer, right? I mean, that's where the dominoes start to fall.
I think that there's a few different ways to look at it with the Pirates, and this isn't a Pirates podcast, so I don't need to waste too much time on it. But I think that the act has kind of grown tired with the fan base. I think the act has also grown tired within Major League Baseball. So I think there is a little bit of pressure and a little bit of a spotlight on the Pirates to do a little bit more in terms of their overall spend. And I think really what it comes down to is you have Paul Skeens, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, just touching the fringe of his prime here. And is Paul Skeens going to be a Pittsburgh Pirate for the next 15 years? I don't know, but this is your best chance to win when you have this guy as your centerpiece. And it's also your best chance to make money and fill that park and surround Paul Skeens with a team that makes you at least believe a little bit. So now more than ever is the time to spend if you're the Pirates. And I do think it's a combination of those two things. Now, what does that mean for the Phillies? Well, what I think it means is, like you had alluded to a moment ago, it may be yet another suitor that puts a little bit more pressure on the team that's going to get Kyle Schwarber in the end to add a little bit more to that deal. And so we've worked under this assumption that you're looking at 4 years, 120. I think that's what we talked about at one point in the regular season. And then it became, well, maybe it's 4 years, 130, 135. Maybe it's a fifth year, 140, 150. Is there some world where a team gets nuts, though, and says this guy is aging well, he's better against left-handed pitching than he's ever been, you can pencil him in for 50 home runs a year for at least the next 3 seasons, and oh, by the way, we're a young up-and-coming team, so maybe it's not the Red Sox, I think, are going to be interested, but maybe it is a team like the Reds or the Pirates, and we want to add some legitimacy to our organization, to our roster, and we will pay a premium for the winning element, that intangible that Kyle Schwarber brings with him. It's possible.
I think it's very possible, and it might not be the Pirates per se. Maybe they're not the ones that actually get the deal done, but it could be a Cincinnati, another smaller market, middle market team. We saw this with the Phillies. They were traditionally not a spender, and then they went out and got Jim Tomei, and that kind of launched things for them. I don't know. Does Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, in the article they mentioned Toronto, certainly not a small market team, but suggested that they're looking for left-handed protection to Vlad Guerrero.
And that would be a perfect match. You look at Toronto specifically, their top 5 payroll team. They just they went as far as you possibly can without winning a championship a season ago. And, Bichette probably isn't in their plans long term, so you need to replace that bat to kind of remain all in, and what a compliment to Guerrero he would be. So, yeah, look, there are real suitors. This is not just the Phillies bidding against themselves playing guess a number, and in a one-on-one stare down with Kyle Schwarber. Now, so much of this is about where does Kyle Schwarber want to be, but when we talk about that average annual value landing somewhere around $30 million, like Andrew Filipponi has in the tweet that you're showing to everybody here, sure. But I think the initial assumption was that if you were going to get to 30 or plus north of it, that you'd be looking at 4 years. Well, now it looks like it might be 5. Hell, if someone wants to get nuts, maybe there's a mutual option with a 6th year in there too. So is this going to require 150 million plus all in? It's looking a lot more realistic than it was maybe even 2 months ago.
What's the year breaker for you?
If you make me commit to 6, I think that gets tough. Like, look, I actually am somewhat bullish on Kyle Schwarber's aging in this deal because he's not an outfielder. You're not asking him to run around and be an athlete. You're asking him to give you quality at bats, have a good feel for the strike zone, which is something that he does have. And yes, is the power going to deteriorate a little bit by the time we reach 2029? Sure. Yeah, like I would expect that, but I'm not too concerned about what a 5-year deal with him would look like. A 6th, a 7th. Yeah, then there gets to be a point where, is there a better way, or is there an alternative way, even if it's not better? Yeah. Is there still a really smart way to allocate that 30 million plus over the next 5 years per season?
Yeah, at what point do you get a glorified Matt Stairs, right? Like, when does he turn into a left-hander that comes in and swings the bat and drills, a home run, but can't hit 56? How much longer do you think you're getting a guy hitting 56 homers?
Look, as long as the power's there, I can kind of deal with the fluctuation in average. But we're not so far removed from Kyle Schwarber in 22 and 23, flirting with 200 for the bulk of each season. It's this guy's not going to win a batting crown. He's not going to hit 300. Got up to a super hot start in terms of his average a season ago, and then things dwindled a little bit, but the power was still there. Look, for this team where they're at, the way that it's constructed, I think that they can turn it over on the fly and remain competitive for a number of years. I don't think that the window is going to slam shut for the Phillies with or without Kyle Schwarber. But where they're at and the pressure and the expectations and the final years of Wheeler, probably the final years of Harper at playing at an all-star level, the time feels like now, and I just don't know how you let 55, 56 home runs walk out the door, even if that means pivoting to a guy like Kyle Tucker. How enthusiastic are the Phillies going to be about doing a decade deal with Kyle Tucker?
I would say ask this question, though, I don't know how you let 56 walk out the door, but are you getting 56 again?
Would you right now, if I said, hey, Mike, $1,000 next season, let's reasonably assume that Kyle Schwarber's healthy for 150 games, would you take over under 46.5 home runs? Where would you go?
I'd probably take the over 46, and is that good enough? But how many years am I getting over 46? Maybe 1, 2, I don't know. And that's where it gets tricky. They're in a tough spot here.
Do I think over the next 3 seasons that Kyle Schwarber can go 45, 45, and 38. Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, that's 128 home runs over 3 years.
Hey, I'm not complaining about it.
Would I pay for a little bit of shakiness in the back end of that? I probably would. By the way, so much of this is predicated upon actually getting someone at the top of the order that can complement the rest of the middle of this lineup, because Kyle Schwarber cannot be your leadoff hitter through any part of this contract. That's so much it's one of the biggest problems with this whole thing. If you're going to do this, you need to make him a middle of the order bat.
Well, we'll see what they end up doing there. At this date, we're live on Wednesday, the 19th of November. We don't know when Schwarber's going to sign. If I was to ask you today, will the Christmas present be you're getting a Schwarber jersey, or will that be a new jersey for Kyle Schwarber?
I still think it's much more likely than not that he's back. If you said let's assign a percentage to it, I would say 75% to 80%. Like, okay. Is this a done deal? Like, no. But I think that all indications are. I go back to this, and I think about John Middleton, and I think about Dave Dombrowski. And let's play out the scenario where the Red Sox or name your team, whoever it is, the Reds, they say, hey, Kyle, 5 years, $150 million. And Kyle Schwarber's agent calls Dave and John talk. 5 years, 150. Kyle's interested. Would you do 5 years, 156? Would you do 5 years with a mutual option for some window dressing in that sixth year?
Yeah.
Would they seriously picture being on the line in that conversation? John Middleton says, well, he's one of our most popular players. He's super productive. He's the heartbeat of this team. No, I don't think so. I'm out. I would just say
this, right? You signed Nick Castellanos to a 5-year deal, and that third, fourth, and fifth year were rough.
Yeah, look, and it's a fair point. It's a fair point because they signed Nick Castellanos off of a season in which he had been a good hitter for a while. There was
a very good hitter.
But that year that they brought him in off the 21 season he had with Cincinnati was otherworldly.
Yeah.
When they did that deal, like, I was excited about Schwarber. I was ecstatic about the Castellanos deal because at the time Castellanos had some fire to him. Like, he was the guy. I remember the Phillies were playing him in 21. He had scored a run. The jersey flailed open. Like the top of the chest was out and he was all pumped up. And you're looking at the numbers and he was just a beast. And you're like, dude, this is a great friggin' signing. Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber. Like, it's easy when you're in wintertime and you get the name and you do the deal to be excited about it. Of course, there's always a scenario where it underwhelms. I just feel like Schwarber – look, dude, I get it. We're talking about a team that has had a number of postseason failures, and I think the last 2 seasons, early playoff exits, very devastating. 23, maybe the most devastating of all with Arizona. This is not a championship team, so I'm not going to sit here and say, well, how can you let the heartbeat of a champion walk out the door? But I'll tell you what, if Kyle Schwarber's not a part of this mix, you better bring in some solid clubhouse guys to replace that intangible because it's going to be lacking.
Just think about this. You mentioned it, and I remember exactly where I was when they signed Castellanos. I was sitting in the back of an Uber in Clearwater on my ride from the Tampa airport to Clearwater Beach, and I was like, whoa, They signed Castellanos too? Think about this. They signed Castellanos, got a 5-year, $100 million deal. Schwarber got a 4-year, $79 million. They essentially thought that Castellanos was going to be a more important and better piece than they thought Schwarber was going to be. And off the year he had in Cincinnati, you can understand. Well, in that time, Schwarber has 187 homers. Castellanos has 82.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not even close. Who was the more valuable player in that time frame? I think that they expected. I mean, I know they expected that Castellanos would be that guy, that he'd be the right-handed difference maker. Think about the conversations that we've had on your show over the last number of years. They need a right-handed bat. They need a right-handed bat. They need a right-handed bat. Well, they don't need a right-handed bat because JT Realmuto declined. JT Realmuto isn't the hitter that he was 4 years ago, sure. But he's still a competent hitter that you can put in the back half of your lineup and feel really good about, especially for a catcher that plays above average defense. They needed a right-handed bat because Nick Castellanos was a shell of himself. And I know they won a lot of games, and Nick Castellanos had his moments. He did. He helped them make a run in 22, took them to the doorstep of a title. He had his moments in the 23 playoffs early on against Atlanta. Like, not to say that Castellanos is a total disaster. The fact of the matter is that they've spent each of the last two off seasons trying to trade that contract. And as you probably want to talk about today, there's a report out there that they're having a little bit of a hard time finding an initial taker on that deal. You want to go there? Is that a smooth transition? Nice segue.
I liked it because there are no takers for Nick Castellanos, nor am I surprised. Who the hell wants Nick Castellanos at $20 million, especially if they think you're just going to release him?
Yeah, and I think the reality of it is that they will release him if they cannot find a match. Now, look,
because the match for me, Bob, see, it is like Pittsburgh, one of those teams that just says, we'll take him, we'll give you a D-level prospect, and hopefully he hits 18 homers before the All-Star break, and then we could trade him.
Hey, look, if I had a young athletic outfield, or I was looking, see, I don't think he hits enough to be a DH, right? Like, I don't think that there's enough offensive punch to say, yeah, just make the guy a DH. But if I have a younger or athletic outfield and I say, I could just use a guy that I think will reasonably hit 250 for me, maybe OPS is somewhere around 720 to 740, which I know he had a bad year last year, but I still think that he has that in him. Can he hit 20 home runs for me? Yeah, I know he gets himself out a lot. I know he's frustrating. He's kind of a little bit of a stranger, but I think like there's a team that probably would want to, that's the best way I can. He's just a different kind of guy. That's all. He's not I don't think he's a bad guy. I actually think he's probably a decent guy, but it's just he's just a different kind of guy. Is there a team that would take that? Like, he just goes out there, he plays his right field, he plays his left field. He's not very good, but he's paired with two other guys. He can hit 20 home runs, and he gives me a veteran presence, a professional presence. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Keep in mind, it's November 19th. Like, because they can't find a suitor that's willing to take on $20 million or maybe even $15 to $14 million right now. We get a couple weeks into it. Dominoes start falling around the league. Maybe a team says, okay, for 1 year and $10 million to $12 million, we'll do that deal, keep him off the market.
Well, I wonder how many people would have been interested in that, and then the end of the season with him kind of being a little, I don't want to say he was like insubordinate, but he got himself benched, and then, there was this, as you said, he's just a different guy. If other teams are like, you know what, for 1 year, I don't need that guy around here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, look, ultimately, I don't think that Nick Castellanos has a real complaint with the way that he was treated or handled with the Phillies. I mean, the benching in Florida, like, the timing of it was not great. He probably did not like how that played out, but I think that the Phillies, for the most part, did right by Nick Castellanos. They gave him a lot of time to try to feel his way out of struggles and across multiple seasons. But I also don't think that he was so disruptive that around the industry, people are like, this is a guy who is a red flag character guy. I don't think that that's the way that people view him. And I don't think that they necessarily say that he's like a glue guy or like, the best of the best in terms of clubhouse dudes. But I think that he has been around the block long enough. I think he has enough track record. He's been on multiple clubs. And I don't think that there's this consensus viewpoint that he's a bad guy and people are going to steer clear of him because of it. So
who's got a better shot and who has more value, Castellanos or Rojas or Bohm?
Well,
apparently they're going to make Rojas available. I'm imagining the phone's going to start ringing.
Two different questions. I mean, like, it depends what you want. If you're looking for a guy that has some untapped potential and some upside and that you want to go defense first, then Johan Rojas is definitely, interesting. He's a totally different type of, you're shopping in a totally different aisle when you're talking about Johan Rojas versus Nick Castellanos. Rojas is a guy that if I were a younger team that was trying to find competent players that were a little bit interesting, he would be a guy I would really definitely kick the tires on, because I'm not a Johan Rojas guy, but part of the reason I'm not a Johan Rojas guy is because I'm looking at it through the lens of a team that's trying to beat down the door and win it all.
Yeah,
I don't want Johan Rojas to play 130 games on that team. But if I were the 2017 Phillies, Johan Rojas would be extraordinarily interesting to me. Give him 500 at-bats across 2 seasons. Let him feel his way through the Major League Baseball, the ebbs and flows of it. Can he become a 260, 270 hitter, use his speed, play plus defense? Like,
yeah.
I would you could make a worse bet than that.
Oh, listen, I agree with what you're saying there, and I don't think my point is I don't think for the people who are like you got to trade Rojas or include him in a package, like nobody wants Rojas. They're just taking a shot on Rojas.
In terms of like who's the most valuable guy right
Yeah.
now, it's Alec Bohm. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I can play functional third base. Like, I use functional loosely, but 275, 285 hitter. Yeah.
Does the Arenado stuff make any sense to you?
No. You know, if the Phillies were a team that like lacked another veteran piece the last couple of years and were falling short, you'd say maybe we just bring him in because it's one more guy who really has the experience of the grind. Like this team has plenty of that, and has had plenty of that, whether it be Schwarber, whether it has been Real Muto or Castellanos or Turner. Like they don't need another veteran guy for the sake of veteran guy, and he can't hit anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing would be if you moved Bohm, you needed someone to play half a season if you thought Miller was ready.
Yeah, I mean, as a stopgap, it depends. Like, what are we talking about in terms of money? Like, what are we talking about in terms of...
And what am I getting back for Bohm?
Right. I mean, like, look, I mean, that's fair. I mean, what's Nolan Arenado going to do for you next year? He's probably going to give you numbers, I think, that are very similar to what Alec Bohm will give you, which is what? 250 to 260?
Well, I'd say you bring in Nolan Arenado.
Runs, maybe?
You bring in Arenado in here and hit him in the 4-hole like you were hitting Bohm?
No, I mean, I think it'd be the same thing where if you have Arenado here, like just play this out. I don't think he'll be here. I mean, I saw the same reports. You're talking about a 35-year-old guy who's probably a 7 or 8 hitter at this point. Does he play a little bit better defense? Sure. But you're not getting impact bat Nolan Arenado. I mean, he's coming off a year where he hit 237, 12 home runs, and 401 at bats. Let's just say that he feels rejuvenated here. 16 home runs, 250. That's probably your ceiling with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't excite me all that much. I guess the question would be, I don't know, do we think the whole thing, I guess Dombrowski said, hey, look, Trey Turner's our shortstop. Miller knows that. We can have a conversation, but that doesn't sound like they're ready to say, this guy's our shortstop. So, okay, is he a second baseman or a third baseman? Could they find a taker for Stott? I mean, would that be the one that no one's really talking about? And it's like, Stott's traded. We play Sosa there for half a year and hope Miller's ready by the All-Star break. I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? It's like because of where they're at as a team and where they're at in terms of expectations, that factors into how you have to look at this. And like they need to upgrade. They need to make their offense better, more consistent, more dynamic. But if you said, all right, we like Aiden Miller, we do not know where his future is. We don't know if Trey Turner is going to be able to play shortstop consistently the way that he did in 25. Kudos to him, but there's still, I think, some uncertainty about what that would look like in 27 and beyond. We don't have an answer at third base. We're not absolutely sold on Bryson Stott. We love Bryson Stott. We love a lot of the things he does, but we're still platooning him at times in key situations. He saved his season the last 2 months of it. He was dismal for most of the year.
Yep.
But at least he's worked himself back into a conversation where like, maybe I could see this being a long-term solution. So because of the ambiguity, do you bring back Bohm? The contract expires at the end of the year. You're not really married to Bryson Stott. Turner's going to be somewhere, but it doesn't have to be short beyond 2026. Like it wouldn't be I don't think it would be malpractice to say like, let's run it back. Bohm, Turner, Stott, like Sosa mixed in there. Like, I don't think it would be insane to do that because of the Miller question. But does that make you better in 26? No. In a place where you probably need to upgrade at third base? No, it doesn't. So,
right.
You know, that's unless things behind the scenes have deteriorated to a point with Bohm and the Phillies that you're like, dude, like, yeah, like from a production standpoint, sure. But behind the scenes, we have to move on. That's a different question. I think they want to.
Do you predict at all that Miller will play at the big league level in 2026?
I would say in most cases that he would, right. But would it not be absurd to think that Miller runs into the same situation that Crawford ran into this year, where you're like, well, he's
because under your scenario, yes, because you would be complaining all year that your worst two spots are third and second, and we have a guy who's playing or could play. How do you play him at short all minor league season if you don't think he's going to play short? That's another thing. It's like you just said Turner's the short. You played him at short all year because, hey, I want to see you play short. Now you're saying we got
a shortstop. But do you want to, if you think that he has value and can play shortstop at the major league level and you don't quite know where he fits yet, I don't know that I want to take the reps away from shortstop. Like, I think I feel better about him continuing to evolve as a shortstop, which also makes him more palatable to other teams. And then if he has to transition out of that, you can kind of do that work this winter. You can do that work, going into spring training next year to give him a little bit more position versatility. So I don't know. I mean, to answer your question, I think that's a coin flip. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but I think so much of it is like, where are the Phillies at? Are they competing? Are they knocking on the door of a championship? And what type of season is he having? Because, look, Miller finished strong, but those numbers did not look very good the first half of last season.
Yeah, the quote from Dave Dombrowski was, right now with Trey Turner being our shortstop and us being very happy with him, there's not a path at shortstop for Aiden. I think he's wise enough to see that as it stands, but we would sit down and have a conversation, clearly discuss it with him, and come up with our specific plan would be.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like, hey, man, you're going to play shortstop anytime soon, but we want you to play shortstop. Like, I remember Cody Ashe, and they wanted him to play the outfield and then didn't give him one rep in the outfield in spring training. And then in the middle of the season was like, you suck at third base. We're going to move you to the outfield. So then we're going to send you to AAA in the middle of the year to go learn how to play the outfield. Like, wouldn't that be something that you would say, hey, man, you're not going to be a shortstop. You're going to have to play second or third. You pick.
Yeah,
I'll even give you the option. You pick.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that he's going to initially play with the Phillies second or third if he's here. Now, maybe the summer evolves and he becomes part of a trade package where they just say, you know what, we're comfortable with where we're at.
Oof.
We're gonna make him a centerpiece. But, this guy is not Cody Ashe in terms of the caliber of prospect.
No. I agree with that. The point is.
But I'll give you another comparison, another guy that you could draw into the picture. Like, I believe that Scott Kingery did not materialize with the Phillies because of Scott Kingery. I believe that he didn't take it seriously enough when he first came up. I really do. I know that he was not helped by Gabe Kapler and that Phillies regime, and bouncing him all over the place and turning him into the super utility guy. I get all that. But I think at the end of the day, Scott Kingery didn't pan out because of Scott Kingery, not because of the Phillies. That all said, I also think that the Phillies saw that situation play out and said, this is our best infield prospect since Scott Kingery. Let's not do that again. Like, let's give this guy one or maybe two paths to the major leagues. Let's not turn this into a situation where we're trying to convert him to an outfielder. Maybe you can play both. Like, I think they're going to say, like, this is it,
All right, let's do a couple quick hitters before we get out of here. Bring Bader back. Is that seeming like it's more realistic?
And there was a lot of talk last week about the Instagram post. My former colleague Anthony Sanfilippo had an interesting theory about that Instagram post. It was kind of weird timing, right? And everyone kind of took it to mean that, he's saying goodbye. Anthony's premise, which I thought was interesting, was that it was strategically done to kind of put a little pressure on the Phillies to say, like, hey, this was awesome. I would come back. You playing ball, just kind of stir the conversation a little bit.
Well, I mean, they're in a tough spot. Like, where else do they go? Like, if they don't bring him back, you're back at square one in center field. Where do you go? I mean, unless you think Crawford's a center fielder.
Yeah, if I can do that somewhere at 3 years and $35 million, give or take a couple, or if it's 2 years with a mutual option in year three, I'd be interested in that. Anything that gets north of 3 years.
Yeah.
Look,
I can also.
It is with Harrison Bader that track record. He's had his moments. He was awesome last year. He's great here. But, like, do you think that Harrison Bader, like you did this to me with Schwarber a few minutes ago, do you think Harrison Bader is going to hit 275 with 20 home runs each of the next 3 years? Because I don't.
No, I could also predict if you do that, a year into it, you're like, we're stuck with this guy for 2 more years because he's Harrison Bader. Yeah, the Harrison Bader that you got is different from the Harrison Bader that's been in St. Louis, the Mets, the Yankees, and everywhere else he's been.
I think you do a deal with Harrison Bader, assuming that he's your everyday guy in 26, and you have to be prepared that he is a fourth outfielder in 27, 28. You have to be comfortable with paying a guy somewhere between $10 and $14 million a year to be like a right-handed Brandon Marsh. Like, he's a platoon guy.
Yeah. Marsh, any trade value?
I would think a team would be interested in Brandon Marsh. Sure. But the thing is, like, are you getting back a piece that makes you better? I think a team would love to have Brandon Marsh, but what are you getting back from another team? And it's interesting that you mentioned this, because this is one thing I wanted to talk about today, because it has nothing to do with the Phillies, but I think it has everything to do with the Phillies. Is you look and you see that Grayson Rodriguez, the left-hander from Baltimore, was traded. Grayson Rodriguez, very good upside guy. He's had injury issues, has missed time, but he was dealt for 32-year-old Taylor Ward, who has been linked to the Phillies at different parts, the former Angels outfielder, right-handed bat, has pop, 30-plus homer guy. But, man, you're talking about a young pitcher that has some upside with some red flags. On a team
that, by the way, has no pitching.
And he's also under control through, I believe, 28 into 29. And Taylor Ward has one more year of arbitration eligibility. He's probably going to make about $11 million in 26, and then he's gone. You don't have control of him after that. So that's a hell of a price to pay for a 32-year-old outfielder with 1 year of control. I'm sorry, I said he's left-handed. He's a right-handed pitcher. I just don't know, man. Like, that's a hell of a price to pay. And the reason it's important to the Phillies is because you say, okay, if you don't re-sign Schwarber, or if you do re-sign Schwarber, let's go out there and get a trade going. Let's get creative in the trade market to get a meaningful upgrade in terms of our offense. They don't just go out and get the shiniest object. They actually sit down and think about, like, let's find a diamond in the rough, or let's find a guy let's find Taylor Ward. That's a steep price to pay for Taylor Ward.
I was going to say that's a steep price to pay, and the trade makes no sense for Baltimore, a team that has no pitching. I don't understand it. Like, what are you doing? You need pitching in the worst way. You trade a pitcher to get a veteran outfielder. I mean, they have so many pieces that didn't perform. I get it, but their problem is they can't pitch.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like you said, you can look at it one of two ways. Like, Rodriguez misses all of last year. He made 23 starts in 23, made 20 starts in 24. But when he's been on the field, when he's been out there, it's been promising. He is a question mark. It may not pan out. You may have already seen the best of this guy, when he returns. But yeah, I think what it does, if anything else, it doesn't preclude the Phillies from making trades, but it just sets this idea that, like, you're not going to be able to say, like, here's Alec Bohm, we're going to go get an impact bat, or here are two AA guys that are such and such, or so and so. We're going to go get a real difference maker that moves the needle and pushes us over the edge into a championship season. That just doesn't feel likely.
All right, for the people out there, yesterday, Painter, McFarland, Rincones got put on the 40-man. McGarry did not. He was the one I guess some people were a little surprised by. I don't know if there's anybody else on that list. But what does this message say? Any of these guys have a shot to help? We know Painter. But does that say, hey, we really think McFarland can help us out, or we really think Rincones can be that extra outfielder this year?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like, when you look at, like, let's talk about Rincones first. Like, good season, promising. The production is intriguing, right? And I'm not going to pretend to be Baseball America guy. Like, I deeply know every Phillies prospect. That I'll keep it real here, but I think that there's a sense that he could be a major league outfield bat as like a fourth option. Like, he's not. I don't think this is a guy that's going to play 160 games for you. But, like, is he a guy that at some point could maybe help a major league team? Sure. McFarland's, like, interesting to me because he's not super young. He's going to be 20, 25 years old next year. And his numbers, like, don't, like, jump off the page at you. Like, he ended with Jersey Shore last year. He was in Reading at one point, but, like, it did not go well. He had a 6.35 ERA. In a very small amount of time, 4 games. The bulk of his season came in Jersey Shore, but, like, even at high A, 4.72 ERA, a 1.345 WHIP, like, walked 5 per 9, struck out 9 per 9. Like, it's not like the stuff blew you away. Like, I mean, they must You read into that and you just look at the numbers. You say, like, they must think that they're on the verge of unlocking something with him because it hasn't been there to date.
And much like McGarry, a guy who they liked, he got hurt, had a decent season last year,
He did have a decent season last year.
And they didn't, choose to keep him around. I thought that was kind of interesting as well. Last one, some reports that other teams are interested in your lefties. Now, these guys have had all microcosm of success. I mean, Banks was tremendous for you last year. We know the Alvarado story. Straham has been a high leverage guy for you. But are you banking on that, hey, they're relievers and they're so hit or miss and they can't have 3 good seasons in a row? In Matt Strahm's case, maybe we let you go. Plus, he gets a chunk of change for what he does. Alvarado, he's making some money. He's been wildly inconsistent. Banks has been maybe the steady Eddie guy of this group, and he makes no money. Right. So I kind of find it hard to believe that you want to trade him, but any of these make sense.
I mean, it makes sense in terms of what the return might be. You look at each of these 3 guys on an individual basis, and I can give you a great case for wanting to acquire them. And if you're the Phillies, why you would consider moving on. I mean, look, number one, let's start with Jose Alvarado. They pick up the option. It's $9 million. You've seen him throw big-time innings in big-time games with some degree of success. Yes, he makes you want to rip your hair out. You don't know. There's a little bit of a question mark. He missed a ton of time last year. Then he got hurt. What is he next year? But at $9 million for that upside, when you look at what some of these relievers get on the open market, there's not a long-term commitment, and the money's not insane. And he could come in and be a difference maker for any bullpen. So that's interesting. Matt Straham, he's pitched in plenty of big games. He had a good year last year, 1.075 whip, 2.74 ERA, pitched in 66 games. He was durable, but he wasn't the same guy that he was in 24. 24, he was lights out. He was one of the best relievers in baseball. Last year, he was good. We spent a lot of time this year going what's wrong with Matt Straham? It wasn't that he was a bad reliever, just that he wasn't the same dude. And so do you kind of anticipate a further decline? And if you're the Phillies, you say, all right, if we get back something meaningful, well, let's maybe do that.
Hey, if you get something that changes the dynamics of your lineup, I think you got to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's going to be 34 years old next season, and that's a way to get younger and maybe get a meaningful piece back, so.
Well, that was 2 off seasons ago, they signed Whit Merrifield, and he was the guy who was different from everybody they had. He was the do-it-all. He put the ball in play. He made contact. He didn't, and that completely fell apart. Then they go back down that road again and try to find that super utility guy that can do everything, who is a veteran. I don't know, but as we've been the moral of the story is trying to figure out a way to fix this Rubik's Cube to make it fit a little bit better is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, and look, and to finish the thought, I mean, if you have 3 pretty good lefties that you rely on, in Major League Baseball, that's almost kind of considered a surplus. And you look at Tanner Banks, he's making no money, you said, about $1 million next year. He had a whip around 1. He pitched 69 games. It felt like he was in a game every other night for the Phillies because he was. 3.07 ERA, and he got them out of a ton of tight spots last year when some of their bigger name guys couldn't do it.
No doubt.
So if I'm the Phillies, maybe I'm willing to deal Alvarado or Straham because I trust him more, or because I have Alvarado and Straham, Banks makes no money. Maybe I can get a little bit more of a pop on my return because he was really effective and cheap. I don't know.
All right, we'll get out on this. You think there's a surprise blockbuster type of trade, or is this offseason going to be minimally quiet?
The last 3 years, going back to 23, I kept saying, the Phillies are going to do something at the deadline. It's a good team. They have the parts. They're going to really drop the hammer. They didn't do it in 23, and they didn't do it in 24, and they didn't do it in 25. And I think that they recognize they need change.
You mean at the trade deadline or in the offseason?
No, in the trade deadline, I think they're a little bit hamstrung what they could really do in the offseason. I mean,
they did get Duran.
It was Turner. Turner was the thing after 23.
Yeah, they did get Duran this offseason.
Duran, that's a I dropped the hammer. Sure, Duran was a good ad. Bader was a great ad. What they acquired was exactly what they needed.
Yep.
But when they did the deal for Bader, I mean, like, let's be real. Like, none of us were like,
No.
that changes everything. So good on the Phillies for making the right deal there, right? But I'd love to tell you that, like, yeah, they're gonna cook up something nuts this offseason. They're really gonna just knock your whatever socks off. I was gonna say something else. But,
Whoa.
yeah. So, I mean, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I know that Buxton's out there, and boy, when you talk about like checking boxes of what it would look like on the field, oh my God, it would be a dream.
Okay, real quick on Buxton. If you're kind of worried about now he's got a 1-year deal, right? He would be at the end of the road. You don't have to sign him and give him that big deal. But he's approaching the age, which is why you're worried about all the guys that you currently have, because they're all at that age where it's like, I don't know that I want to commit to you anymore.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, he's going to be 32 next season, but
he's been hurt a lot.
That's where anytime you mention Byron Buxton, the first thing you're going to talk about is that he's been hurt. I mean, let's go back to 2020. Doesn't count really in my mind, but in 21, 61 games, 22, 92, 23, 85, 24, 102. And then last year was the healthiest he's been at 126 games. So you have to assume that you're going to get Byron Buxton for 105 games next year, probably. Like, there's no track record of him being able to play north of 150 games. He's never done it. The most he's ever played in a single season was in 2017 when he was 23 years old. So that's scary. But in terms of the production and what he is capable of, I mean, he hit 35 home runs last year in 488 at-bats. He had an 878 OPS. And he's a good dude, and he's a good defender, and he's a hell of a player. And, like, man, I'd be excited. That'd be one if you picked up the phone and the alert went off. I'd say, I know all of the issues, but boy, this is fun.
That could get us to do an emergency.
That would be like, hey, Bob, come on, get the microphone out. Let's go.
All right, we're going to turn off the mics. Another now batting for the Phillies. Who will be the next new hitter in the Phillies lineup? Well, we don't know yet. It's a Mike and Bob Phillies chat. We drop it live here on the BFA Live Sports on the X platform, YouTube. Make sure you hit the like button, repost, retweet, subscribe to everything out there. We appreciate everybody who's already done that. He's Bob Wankel. I'm Mike Gill. We'll do it again next week. We just talked 45 minutes about Phillies baseball in November. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. You get the right coffee and anything's possible.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya.
All right, there you go. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.